I never asked his name. I don't speak draconic, and he couldn't tell me anyway. Not in words, not in anything I'd have understood back then. He was just the little one who showed up at the service hatch 3 months before everything changed. My name is Petra Voss. Run the mid-shift lunch counter at Kareth Station for 11 years. It's not glamorous work. The station handles freight transfers for 6 systems, and the humans who move through it are tired, underpaid, and specific about their soup. I start at 4 in the morning. I'm done by 3 in the afternoon, and I go home smelling like broth and industrial cleaner. That's the whole job. That's my whole life, and I've never once thought it was less than enough. The hatch in question is a small ventilation access panel in the prep corridor behind the main counter. It's supposed to be sealed. I found it open one morning in late winter, or what passes for winter, this far from the inner systems, and assumed a maintenance crew had forgotten to latch it. I left it. I'm not in the habit of reporting small things that aren't hurting anyone. He appeared 3 days later. I heard him before I saw him. A sound somewhere between a scrape and a low note played on something hollow. Not a rat, not a pipe complaint. I looked up from the stock pot, and there was a small, scaled face at the base of the hatch, low to the floor, watching me with eyes the color of amber backlit by a lamp. He was maybe the size of a large dog folded small. His scales were the deep blue-gray of old iron, and they caught the kitchen light oddly, shifting toward green when he moved. His wings were pressed flat against his back, tucked in the way a bird tucks its wings in rain. Not broken, just careful. One foreleg was held slightly off the ground. I noticed that right away because I noticed those things. I've been on my feet all my life, and I know what it looks like when a creature is trying not to put weight on something. I didn't scream. I don't know why. I'd never seen a dragon up close. Most people haven't. The Keth-Soren Pact territories are 3 transit lanes east of here, and they do their trading through intermediaries. But there was something about the way he held still, the way he watched me with those amber eyes without any aggression in them at all, that made screaming feel like the wrong answer to a question he hadn't asked. I turned back to the stove. I ladled a bowl of the beef and root stew I'd been running that week, added an extra scoop of the meat, because he was clearly young and possibly hurt, set it on the floor near the hatch without looking at him directly. I went back to work. When I looked again 10 minutes later, the bowl was clean. He was gone. He came back the next morning, and the morning after that. By the end of the first week, I'd learned a few things. He didn't like the fish days. He would accept bread if I tore it into pieces and set them in a row, and he was definitely injured in that front leg. Not badly, not actively bleeding, but stiff in a way that was slowly improving. I started leaving the hatch unlatched. I don't know when exactly that stopped feeling strange. He never came around when other people were in the kitchen. He had an instinct for the early hours, the half-dark before the prep crew arrived. Don't know if he was watching from somewhere, or if he could smell that it was just me. Either way, it was always just me. I talked to him the way you talk to a cat that's decided you're acceptable. Low, direct, not expecting an answer. Told him about my day. Told him about the freight crews and their particular opinions on portion sizes. Told him my late husband had kept a dog named after a minor civil administrator whose name I could never spell, and that the dog had been smarter than most of the men I'd known in my 20s. The little dragon watched me when I talked. He listened the way animals listen when they decide you're not a threat. Not pretending, not performing, just present. The leg healed. By the 2nd month, he was walking on it fine. He started coming a little later, staying a little longer. He'd curl in the corner near the warm exhaust from the ovens and sleep while I worked. Once, when I accidentally dropped a full rack of tin bowls and made a sound that probably woke the whole east corridor, he lifted his head, assessed that I was fine, and put it back down. That felt like the quietest form of friendship I'd ever been offered. I didn't tell anyone. It's not that I was hiding him. It never felt like something that needed to be hidden. It just felt private, the way some things are. A morning habit. My kitchen, my hatch, my small, strange, regular. The pack arrived on a Tuesday. I didn't know that's what they were at first. The station's freight dock is on the far side of the hub, and I don't pay attention to arrivals. That's not my department. What I noticed was that the prep corridor suddenly smelled different, like ozone and something older, mineral, deep. And then the crew I just started my morning, with found reasons to be somewhere else very quickly without anyone saying why. I was wiping down the counter when the first one came through the services. She was large. That's the only word that works at first. You have to give yourself a moment before the details arrive. Taller than the door, by enough that she came through at an angle, her wings folded tight. Her scales a burnished copper red that darkened to near black at the joints. Horns swept back from her brow in a clean curve. Her eyes were gold, and they moved across the kitchen with the flat, careful attention of something that was looking for a specific thing and would not be distracted. Two more came behind her. Different colors, one smoke pale, one a deep weathered green, but the same quality of attention, the same stillness. Stayed where I was. I want to be honest about this. I was frightened, not panicked, not frozen, but my hands had stopped moving, and my heart was doing something that my doctor would have had opinions about. I'm 61 years old, and I have stood my ground in front of freight crews 3 times my size, and I know the difference between a situation you from and a situation you hold still for. This was the second kind. The copper red one looked at me for a long time. Then she looked at the corner, near the oven exhaust, and then the little one walked out of the shadows and sat down next to me. I hadn't known he was there. He must have come in through the hatch while I was prepping, quiet as he always was. He sat with his shoulder against my knee, deliberately I think, and looked at the copper-red female with something in his expression that was not fear. The kitchen was very quiet. The copper-red female made a sound I can't reproduce, low, with a resonance that moved through the floor and up through the soles of my feet. The pale one and the green one behind her went absolutely still. Then, slowly the copper-red one lowered her head, not to the floor, not a bow in any human sense of the word. It was more than that. A deliberate drop of the neck, the horns pointing toward the tiles held there. The others followed, and in the freight dock beyond the service entrance, I heard more of them, I don't know how many, make the same sound. One after another, like something passed down a line. I didn't understand it then. I've since had it explained to me by a Kethsoran liaison who came 3 days later and spoke careful, accented standard. The little one in my kitchen was the pack's youngest heir. He'd wandered from a transit escort 5 months prior. They'd searched 3 systems. The pack elders had debated retrieving him by force, and the only thing that had delayed them was evidence, tracks, scent markers, that he was sheltered and being fed. She had said, in that meeting before they came, she keeps coming back, every morning, to a child she does not know, who can give her nothing. The reverence in my kitchen that Tuesday was not for me, exactly. It was for what I represented to them. The thing a person does in the dark when they don't know anyone is watching. The way you treat someone who is small and hurt and can't pay you back. I still run the mid-shift counter at Kareth Station. The hatch stays unlatched. Nobody on the freight crews asks about the empty corner near the oven exhaust. They've all seen it now, and somehow they all understand that it is not a thing they talk about in here. It belongs to the mornings. Some days the corner is just a corner. Some days I set a bowl down near the hatch anyway, because a habit that kept a prince fed for 3 months seems worth keeping. The soup's usually the beef and root. He never liked the fish days.